everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm the City Witch. Today's video I'm going to be talking to you about books on demons. Now I've already done one on angels, so it made sense to do one on demons as well. None of the books I'm going to show you today are ritual books on how to summon or work with demons. I feel like that should be a completely separate video that's done properly. This one instead is just dictionaries and books that you can use to get information, look at the lore, the stories, the myths and legends surrounding these creatures, to give you that background information and knowledge before you go ahead and work with them. So I'm trying to be responsible here, guys. So there's only 3 books that I'm going to talk to you about, and they don't just cover demons, they cover all kind of damned dark energies as well, and many different creatures out there that kind of fall into the darker aspect of the craft rather than the lighter aspect. So the first book I'm going to talk to you about is called Names of the Damned, the Dictionary of Demons, and it's by Michelle Belanger. I think I'm saying that right. I'm not good at names. I've said that before, but it's true. So it's this one here, guys. So I love this book. Apologies for that. It was kind of left out in the white, and as you can see, it became tarnished. It should be red, and that's the back of the book. Now, this is quite a weighty book. It's quite a decent, chunky book. It falls under the category of body, mind, spirit, and occultism. The book says on the back that it costs $24.95. And I know that in British currency I paid roughly 20 quid for this, so it's a decent pretty penny to buy, but it's probably the most extensive book I have on the subject, and the way it's laid out is truly fantastic. I've never read any work by this person before I bought this book, and I've got to say I was impressed. There was a lot about this book that I enjoyed, and it's laid out, like I said, really well. The content is very informative, and there's a number of other books this author did that I'm considering getting as well. So other books that Michelle did was The Ghost Hunter's Survival Guide, Haunting Experiences, Psychic Dream Walking, I think that one would be fantastic, The Psychic Energy Vortex, The Psychic Vampire Codex, Sacred Hunger, Vampires in Their Own Words, and Walking the Twilight Path. So there's a couple of really interesting books there I'm considering getting for my collection just for a different perspective on things. Now, to give you an idea of the content of this book, you have a section on acknowledgements and a full introduction to using this book, how the book came about, you know, the author's experiences, and there's a couple of like personal stories in there as well, so I like that. I like to connect to the author. Then there's a full dictionary of demons, which is listed A to Z. And then this is the bit that most of you are going to be interested in. So at the end of the book, there are a number of different lists of correspondences that are helpful. So there is an infernal correspondences list, planetary and elemental correspondences, demons and the deacons of the zodiac. I'll say that again, guys. My neighbours, sorry. Demons and the deacons of the zodiac. There you go. The duality, demons and constraining angels, and then there is a full list of other recommended books as well that you can refer to. Now, one of the things I love about this book is throughout the entire thing, she talks to you about where she got her research and content from. She tells you what she cross-referenced for the information. She also gives you a list of different palms that you can refer to. You can go to Bible references as well. So she did really do her research and lay this out really well. She gives you information on what religion that particular demon came up in quite a bit, as well as some general information, some myths, some legends and stories. She also gives you links to other demons as well, and then tells you where to go for that in the book, which I like. At the back of the book, as I say, there is a list of correspondences, and I'll just show you this. So the way that this is laid out is like that. And then she's listed them under the traits. So you can look up demons, say, for decay, disease, destruction, for poison, murder, riches, necromancy, magic and sorcery, storm weaving, for finding hidden treasure, for invisibility, for knowledge. So there's a number of different energies that she's put into this, and then she's listed as many demons as possible that fall under that or have abilities in that field for you to consider. And then obviously you can look at one that you feel drawn to, go through its story and really research it before going ahead and working with it magically. So I do really like that. I also kind of liked that she gave you the planets and the elements as well, so you knew which demons had power over those forces, so you know how to work and prepare for that. She also gives a full list of table of contents there as well, and she gives you the palms as well of where that demon was referenced, which is really good. And then she also gives you the angel that kind of can defeat that demon as well, should you wish to have that energy present, just in case. So very responsible, very well laid out, very good book. Throughout the entire book as well, there is some artwork in it and some sigils. Just trying to find you one as an example. Just went past one there. So there you go. So there is a lot of occult stuff in this as well. There are some Bible stories. There's sigils as well that relate to a number of demons in this that you can work with. If the demon had a special symbol or sigil, she included it, which I like, so you don't have to go out your way to go and find it. And then if there isn't one for that demon, she just didn't include it. So there was a lot in this book that is handy. So this is probably the go-to that I would recommend if you're interested in researching demons, knowing your stuff and getting into demonology. This is probably a good icebreaker book for you because it has so much information, and it does cover a little bit of the occult at the back, which means you can take that into ritual format or spellcraft if you wish. So 10 out of 10 from me. Thoroughly enjoyed this book, thought it was fantastic, and I'll probably never part with it, to be honest, guys. Probably with me till the day I die. The next book I'm going to talk to you about is by John Michael Gree. It's called Monsters, The Investigator's Guide to Magical Beings. Now, as I flip through this one, guys, I've highlighted and made lots of notes in this, because again, this is one I'm never going to get rid of. This one was the one I used when I was first getting into demonology, researching monsters and beings and creatures and wanting to really understand them. So I obviously made a lot of notes within this book. Let me see, that were relevant to me at the time. So the content. So the content of this book is as follows. So it has a foreword, how to use this book, and a cautionary note. Part 1, an introduction to the field guide, the reality of the impossible. Part 2, a field guide to monsters, and monsters in this are as follows: vampires, ghosts, werewolves, creatures of dark fae, mermaids, dragons, spirits, angels and demons. And then part 3 of the book is a guide to monsters investigation, the complete investigator's guide. And part 4, magical self-defense, so natural magic and ritual magic. And then there's a glossary of monster lore at the back. And then there is also a recommended reading list on other monster lore that you can consider having in your collection. So I like the way this book is laid out. It's really, really interesting. I've thoroughly enjoyed this. It's been one of those books that I couldn't put down. Comes with some artwork in it as well. There's been an awful lot of research in this. I've actually got notes sticking in this of my own design. This is where I did research as a hunter, I suppose. So I made a list of different vampires, the different species, countries they come from, and actual disposal methods. I made a list of how to, kill vampires, all the common things I was noticing, steaks, garlic, silver, anything like that cropped up, and then what cropped up the most and for which ones. As you can see, I highlighted and wrote in the book as well, which some of you might be going, oh, because I know some people don't like to do that, but I was researching. This was purely supposed to be a research book, so hence all the notes. I've got lots of things in this book that I have personally made accounts of, and they are throughout the whole book, guys. I love some of the artwork in this. I'll show you this one. Here we go. That one for werewolves, I think it's lovely. She used a lot of fantastic stuff. He used a lot of fantastic stuff in this. Really enjoy this book. And I say at the back, there are ways to use this book for magical self-defense. So it covers first natural magic, so using magic out in the universe, natural forces, so oils, salts, blessed incense, banishing incense, blades and daggers and how to anoint and consecrate them, holy amulets as well. There's a couple of items that you can make and projects. Ritual magic, it talks about using the Kabbalistic cross, talks about names of power, lesser ritual pentacles, and then higher forces, the rose cross. Talks about how to actually put up a barrier and a magic circle to protect yourself. talks about all the different connections to that as well, talks about the chakras, how to check yourself and how to cleanse yourself. So there's a magical element to this book that I liked, that I thought was fantastic and completely and utterly usable in witchcraft. The author wasn't boring at all. There was a lot of information in this that I thoroughly enjoyed, obviously, and I'm still working through this even now. I've never actually finished this book. As I encounter something, I tend to go through a section and then just research one at a time. And I like to research things thoroughly, so I don't just go through a book and I'm done. I like to actually work through in stages, so this is one of those books. And I've had this book for quite a long time. I'd probably say over 10 years, something along those lines. Falls under the category of paranormal phenomena and folklore. Points that this book covers: it says the 5 different kinds of ghosts, magical origins of the werewolf legend, the hidden connections between fairy lore and UFOs, where dragons are found today, how to investigate monster sightings, natural and ritual magic techniques for dealing with hostile monsters and forces in the world around you. So there are a number of different things in this that I find that would be helpful to a magical practitioner, especially somebody that's interested in learning how to defend against those things. And that's where I came from initially. I wanted to defend against these things. So in my opinion, you can't just defend against something if you don't understand it and you don't know the lore behind it. You need to thoroughly research things in order to know that what you're doing is correct and not just guess. So for that reason, books like this are fantastic. I'd score this one really high again, probably a 10 out of 10. Like I said, not actually finished it, so that score could change. But from what I've read so far and what I've researched so far, fantastic. I've cross-referenced nearly everything in this book. So far, spot on. Really good author who did his research quite thoroughly. So definitely a 10 out of 10 from me, guys. 2 books that are fantastic that I would recommend in anyone's collection. And then the last book I'm going to talk to you about is a little nugget that I came across. Now, this book, I think I bought for fun initially, but it actually turned out to be a really good book, to be honest. So I had 2 copies of this, not realising it was the same book, so I gave one to a friend. So the original copy has got a red front cover, but this one's the more modern version of this book. So it's called A Field Guide to Demons, Vampires, Fallen Angels and Other Subversive Spirits. And it's by Carol K. Mack and Diana Mack. And it kind of looks like that. And that is the back. So I honestly just thought it was going to be a book of stories, to be honest, and then when I opened it, it actually wasn't. It was much more magical than I gave it credit for, and the research in it was really quite good, and it covered a number of things that none of the other books did, to be honest, that I liked. So an idea of the content: you've got an introduction, how to use this guide, how to identify a basic demon, how to identify a common fairy, approaches in the field and origins of a species. And then it breaks it down into elements and forces. So the first section's all about water. So it covers Tiamat, mermaids, mermen, the Kappa, the Rusak, the Wahi, Madam White, the Kelpie, Nixes, Knucklers, the Nebula, a number of different things. Then you've got mountain. So you've got the Yuki Oni, Tommy Knockers, Kishi, mountain fairies, Yakas, the white monkey, Dracula. Again, the list kind of goes on. They're just some examples. Then it goes on to forest. It talks about Pan, the Wendigo, the Bori, the Woodwives, the Leshy, the Oni, the Dodo, the Kitsune, and the Langsur. So there's a number of creatures there that you might recognise, some of which you might not. Then the desert, it talks about the Azazel, the Ibis, the Dinjin, ghouls, the Mimi, the Manu, the Ho-Oak, Satan, not the Satan you're thinking of, Domicile, so this covers things like Asmodeus, Lilith, Changelings, Fox fairy spirits, kitchen fairies, the fairy lady, the Nissi, the Pazuzu. Some of these, like I said, I don't recognise, some I do. The Psyche, so in the Psyche, this covers, a list of unusual things that you might not consider. So common ones, so werewolves, zombies, again, a different type of kitsune. But then it also goes into the 7 deadly sins, Mr. Hyde, the id, shadow, talks about quantum daemon energy, Yamatash, talks about demons in ancient cultures, and then it also has a full list of acknowledgements an illustrated credit guide and an afterthought as well, and it gives you a recommended reading list. So the fact it went into a little bit of Freud as well, where it talked about shadow and the id, and it talked about inner aspects of yourself and how you can work against yourself, split personality like Jekyll and Hyde. Really interesting, guys. Stuff I'd not considered, you know, about maybe you're your own monster. That was interesting to me. So there was quite a lot in this that I really enjoyed. I did read it from cover to cover, and I did thoroughly enjoy it. Also, for a number of these, it gives you like little symbols or artwork for each of them as well. Let's see if I can find you another one there. Let's see. So the djinn, so that's a typical symbol of a djinn there. So yeah, so I did like this book. Again, it was one I bought for fun. It wasn't one I intended to be quite a serious book, but there was a lot in it that I enjoyed. Each creature that's in it, it gives you a description, tells you where it come from. So for example, at the moment I'm looking at the Mimi, it says it's located in Australia. Tells you a little bit of the lore of the creature, so the myths, the legends, the stories, how it came into existence and what the author found about it. And then it gives you a section on disarming and dispelling techniques to get rid of it. So for this one, it says humankind has learned many creative and healing arts from the Mimi. However, as with all fairy species, certain prohibitions prevail and no dining is permitted. Encounters with these powerful species must be left to professionals. So it's warning you to be really careful there and to, you know, not take it lightly, even though it's a slightly more positive spirit. And again, it goes on like that throughout the entire book. So there's a number of different techniques you can utilise in that in your craft. Some of the creatures in here, for example, are weak against silver, so you can maybe use silver shards or chains to surround the circle to constrain it. There's all sorts of different things that you can take from this book that I found useful. Now, it isn't a magical book per se, although the lore in it is just as good as the others. And I did like the way it was laid out, and the original copy was very good, but this one was more modern and had a bit more included in it. I didn't pay a lot for it. I think it's $7.99, so it wasn't expensive. I think you could probably buy it easily online, to be honest, guys, so I'll show you one more time. And I'd probably score this pretty, you know, decent score, maybe a 7 or an 8 out of 10. Could have done with a little bit more information in it, and it obviously isn't really an A to Z, although it does list like elements and, you know, the desert, the mountains, the forest. So if you have a rough idea of where it was located or where it was spotted, you might be able to look it up based on that alone. But it doesn't give you an A to Z, which would have been nice. Yeah, it does give you an index though. So if you know the name, then perhaps you can use the index. But if you don't know the name, you don't know where it's from, what species, you would struggle a little bit. Again, it's one I would have liked a bit more content with. But it's not meant to be a magical book. It was just meant to be, I think, a fun book, a lore book, and I actually love it. So I included it in my collection, and it's a nice addition to the ones there. And none of the others talk about the id or the shadow. Dream books do, but I thought that was interesting, turning yourself into the monster, not recognising maybe that you are your own monster and that some of these forces are coming from within instead of outside. Lots of clients I have, when they think they're being cursed or hexed or that there's an entity messing with them, often it's not actually an outside force, it's something they've created themselves, and that they are their own worst enemy. I really can't talk today, guys, so sorry. So those are all possibilities to consider, and that book brought it into light for me, and that's something definitely I take into account when now I'm dealing with clients of that nature. So definitely something to look for, guys. I recommend those 3 books thoroughly. I really enjoy them, and they're definitely going to sit in my collection forever. Don't think I'd ever get rid of those 3 books. So that's all I've got for you today. As always, if you like the video, give me that thumbs up and click the bell button so YouTube will tell you when my next video comes out. I'm on various forms of social media that you can follow me on: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and of course I have a Patreon account. So if you'd like to support me on there, thank you very much, guys. I do appreciate each and every one of you. So thank you for watching and supporting me. Be good to each other, as always. Blessed be.